Story 1. AITA for telling my parents they became liars the second they started fostering their adopted daughter. My parents started fostering when I, 19F, was 6. My younger brother was 3 at the time. I never had a problem with it. It was normal and I got along with a lot of the foster siblings who came to live with us. This then changed with Amy. I met Amy in 2nd grade. She was new to my class and we just did not get along. I remember other kids saying she was mad at me and I had no idea why. We only knew each other for a few days at that point. I remember thinking if she was mad at me for nothing then I was mad at her. We clashed a lot. Then in 3rd grade she started bullying me. She'd throw my lunch on the floor and step on it. She'd make up lies about me farting to get other kids to make fun of me. She told the teacher she wouldn't sit/work with freaky eye. I have a scar across my left eye. She'd also say I was evil like Scar from The Lion King. The scar gave her plenty of ammunition and eventually I became very self-conscious of this. My parents knew about the bullying and they were called in to speak to teachers and the principal over the bullying. Turns out Amy was a foster kid. Guess who decided to take her in? My parents. We were 10. My parents decided to adopt her. My parents were asked how I felt about it by a lot of people. They lied and said I was good with it and I was excited to help Amy and get along with her better. It was a lie. I screamed the house down when I found out and begged my parents not to. My brother didn't like Amy either. She had used him against me so many times at school and he knew about it. My parents blamed me for my brother and Amy not getting closer. When I was 15 we had this really big fight. My parents told me Amy was as much my sibling as my brother was and they weren't happy that I didn't acknowledge her as such. I told them I never would. That they could adopt her 100 times and I still wouldn't call her my sister. I told them they chose helping her over protecting me. I told them I wish she had stayed in foster care forever and that nobody had ever loved her, because she was a bully and I was tired of being her target. I told them she had won though. She had them and I would never see them the same way again. A year later Amy and I got into a fight and I was allowed to go and live with my grandparents. My parents tried to keep in touch with me but I made no effort. And eventually I started telling people my parents had lied about me wanting them to foster and adopt Amy. People treat my parents differently as a result and they confronted me about this 3 weeks ago. They showed up at my grandparents and said we needed to talk. They mentioned me calling them liars and I said they were and they became liars the second they started fostering Amy. My parents told me I had such a selfish outlook of the situation. I told them they chose Amy. So I didn't owe them or her a selfless outlook. Story 2. AITA for telling my mother I won't buy her a house with my legal settlement money. I told my mother today that no, I won't buy her a house if I am successful at winning my legal case for an injury that has left me chronically ill, disabled, and unable to work for years. For some context, my mother had never been a great parental figure. Reddit won't allow me to say what we endured as children, but just think of every type of the worst things that can happen in childhood and you'll have a good idea. She was also completely unable to show any sort of love or attention. I had a baby very young, 16, without help. I tried to live at home after my daughter was born, whilst still continuing with school, but as a single 16-year-old mother, the only guidance I got from my mom was her pounding on the bedroom wall and screaming shut that F-kin baby up anytime my daughter cried. I quickly moved interstate and start my own life. I was determined to be a good mom and provide for my daughter. I got a job in a legal office and over the years worked my way up until I was earning in the 6 figures. As a single working mom of 2 I never received any support from my mother or family. Nobody ever babysat my children or helped out financially if I was in a bind. I always have done everything completely on my own. I know never to even bother asking my mother for anything as the answer has always been no. I went through about 7 years of no contact with my mother before letting her back in but with strict boundaries. Going on 3 years ago I got severely ill due to an injury. I've been hospitalized countless times, every area of my life has been impacted. I'm in a wheelchair when I leave the house, can't work, have no social life, am mostly bed-bound and in chronic pain. This is very likely permanent. We have started the legal process and just this morning I sent my mother a post showing that the law firm we are engaging just secured a large settlement for someone who is injured in the same way. We have no idea if this person is terminal or paralyzed or how severe they are to have achieved this payout. Nevertheless, it filled me with the hope that maybe we could be successful and perhaps in the future I won't have to stress constantly about not being able to afford all of my never-ending medical fees. Imagine a life where I can have support carers helping me with daily tasks to take some of the load off my husband. Where I could afford a new and better wheelchair, where I can opt into promising, but very expensive treatment. Mum immediately called me and the first words out of her mouth were, "Well, you're going to buy me a house, aren't you?" Keep in mind we don't even own a home yet and are in a lot of debt for medical costs. I just replied with no. I'm not. Truthfully, I was in shock at the audacity of this. Instead of thinking about how this could help me after all I've been through, her first thought was how it could help her. I told her I had to go as I could tell she was upset. So, AITA? Story 3. AITA for telling my parents I don't want to go back to the way things were when my half-siblings lived with us. I had this fight with my parents the other night. My mom had been working on convincing her older kids, who are my half-siblings, to come to our house for Christmas this year. When they were talking about it, they were telling me how nice it would be for things to go back to the way they were when my half-siblings lived here and we were all together as a family. I told them I don't want to go back to the way things were back then, and I told them it actually sounded like a nightmare. My parents were so surprised I'd say something like that. They told me it was hard to imagine I didn't miss my older siblings. I told them it was never exactly happy when they were living here. To explain what I mean. My half-siblings are 24 and 22. I'm 17 and I have 2 younger sisters who are 14 and 12. My mom and her ex-husband shared custody of my half-siblings, but they only wanted to live with their dad. They never wanted a step-family, and they sure as hell made sure they said it all the time. Between that and always saying they wanted to live with their dad, they hated my dad, they hated me and my sisters. We weren't a family. Mom should never have gotten married again. I was never under any illusion that my half-siblings actually loved me or that they were happy with us. They were like 13-15 when it got worse because they found out their dad had been dating someone after he and mom divorced, and he broke up with the woman to get back together with mom, but she chose my dad instead. That really pissed them off. They always made a point of saying my sisters and I weren't their real siblings, that we had a different dad and that meant we weren't actual siblings. They said siblings share both parents and not just one. They were corrected that half-siblings were still siblings and they said no. They had to keep coming here until they were 18. Mom wouldn't agree to let them live with their dad. They didn't get to have any influence when mom and her ex fought about custody in court, and they even told me they would make our lives miserable for every day they had to come here. I was so glad when my half-brother turned 18 and he stopped coming. I don't think I can explain how much happiness it brought. I don't miss them. I'm not sad they're not here. Hell, after everything I don't give a fuck about them any more than they give a fuck about me. But my parents love them. Even my dad loves them, and they can't say it more clearly how he's not ever going to be anything to them. My parents told me after I said what I did, that we're still a family, and I should leave room for them to grow. And I shouldn't look at only the bad from before. I asked them to share any happy or positive memories of them being in my life. I said I would accept just one. They couldn't answer. My parents told me I should be more open-minded and our family will never heal with my negativity. AITA? Here are some comments. NTA, the message was very clear from the step-siblings. If anything, the mom not respecting their wish to not stay with their siblings was already her ignoring reality and forcing the reality she wanted on them. The reality where she gets to live with all of her children under one roof. Even forcing them to live under the same roof so she could force them into liking each other. Even when it was clear that wasn't going to happen. And now she's ignoring you when you tell her you don't want anything to do with them either. She's still trying to force you into having a picture-perfect happy relationship with them. When you are also telling her that's not going to happen. She has multiple sources telling her that her children don't want anything to do with her or the new family. She forced them to stay. So they took that resentment out on you. Which made her fantasy even less likely to happen. Now she's trying to force it again. And now she is ignoring you when you try to tell her it's not going to happen. She is out of touch. NTA. You deserve a happy family life. And forcing your step-siblings into the house isn't going to provide that. And it's on her for both ignoring them and ignoring you when you try to tell her that. And another comment, NTA, but your mother is. She abandoned her older children for a do-over family. You need to tell your mother that she has 2 families and never the twain shall meet. The first one she discarded and the second one she nurtured. She left her 5-year-old and 7-year-old behind. She is vile. Story 4. AITA for winning my girlfriend's friends a carnival prize? I went to the carnival with my girlfriend and her best friend this past weekend. We are all mid-20s. My girlfriend's best friend is a very nice person and good friend to my girlfriend, and I have no issues with her tagging along to things. I am not trying to be mean when I say this, but feel it is relevant to the story. She is not a typical conventionally attractive person and has never been in a relationship. My girlfriend said she's never even gotten to the talking stage with a boy and no one has shown interest. My girlfriend says this doesn't bother her though. I won my girlfriend a stuffed animal prize and could see that while her friend was smiling, I think she may have been upset. Not that my girlfriend got a prize but that she's never had that, I guess. So later on I played another game until I won another prize and gave it to her. She seemed very happy and appreciative and my GF seemed fine in the moment. After we dropped her friend off, she kind of laid into me that it was inappropriate and weird of me to do. That it made her uncomfortable. I was just trying to brighten up a nice person's day, but AITA? Here are some comments. Your GF's friend is a great friend to her, but your GF is a shitty friend back. She doesn't like her friend for real, she likes that the friend makes her feel good and probably boosts her confidence. Your GF is a brat. NTA. After your first move was to appropriately give something to your girlfriend because she is the priority, it was nice of you to include the friend by giving her something you won later. Your girlfriend doesn't appear to be very empathetic, and I wonder if her having her friend tag along with you too on relationship stuff is because your girlfriend actually enjoys making her friend see that your GF has the life the friend only wishes she had.